So I'm Kate Watson. I'm a principal sustainability consultant at Turner & Townsend. Turner & Townsend are a large multinational company. We've got a focus on project management and cost management within the built environment. And over the last probably about 4 or 5 years, our sustainability team has grown massively, and we provide services for a whole range of clients, and we've grown from about 7 or 8 people before the pandemic to about 170 now. It's obviously an area of growth, and I think there's a lot of things we can bring to the sector generally, but hopefully there'll be some interesting things for people to pick up on in the slideshow. So can I have the next slide, please? Okay, so I'll try and cover in this session what do we mean by a technical assistance facility. Then we'll have a look at why we need one, some benefits of retrofit, because some of you might not know that much about retrofit. We'll put that in the policy context in the UK. We'll look at who can benefit, the overall objectives of the technical assistance facility we've been delivering, and we'll have a look at some of our successes, and then just a little bit of a takeaway from the session. So next slide, please. So I was looking for a definition this morning on technical assistance facilities, and there are many indeed. But essentially, I liked this quote that was just: technical assistance may involve sending experts into the field to teach skills and help solve problems in their own area of specialization. And I think that really neatly sums up what we're trying to achieve with the technical facility that we are offering to the UK government. So we support the Department of Net Zero and Energy Security and Net Zero, and formerly the Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, with their program here. And fundamentally, there are 3 things that they really want to achieve from the program. So that's the number of homes that they have helped improve, reducing overall carbon emissions, and reducing annual fuel bills. Next slide, please. So why do we need the technical assistance facility for retrofit? I mean, retrofit is quite a well-known approach, but I think there are particular reasons why people aren't still doing retrofit at scale, at least in the UK. There's the slide on the left. Sorry, the picture on the left shows a map of parts of Europe and the heat loss from homes, typical heat loss from homes, after 5 hours of switching off the heating. And as you can see, the UK is in red alongside Belgium as one of the worst performing countries in Europe, losing heat, losing 3 degrees of heat within 5 hours of switching off a heating system. So I think it demonstrates that there is a problem in the UK in terms of the quality of the housing stock that we have. And in order to achieve some of our climate change objectives, we need to consider how we can improve that. So that's where retrofit comes into play. The figure on the right is the proportion of greenhouse gas emissions by sector in 2020. I couldn't find a newer one than that. So in this, you can see that residential accounts for about 16% of the UK's emissions. In previous years, that's been higher. It was fluctuating around 25% for a while. It may be that we've made massive grounds moving forward. It may be that we're counting things slightly differently and counting things that might not have been counted a few years before. So we would say that kind of somewhere between, I would say, 16 and 22% of the UK's emissions are coming from our properties. Next slide, please. So what are the benefits of retrofit? Well, there's 5 that are illustrated here. So we can reduce our carbon emissions. We can reduce heating and electricity bills. We can get warmer homes, and that can lead to improved physical health and mental health and improve comfort. So in the UK, around 90% of homes are on the gas grid. And since the discovery of oil and gas in the North Sea, the majority of UK homes have been heated with gas in that time. Most rural homes in the UK are heated with oil or LPG, and they won't be on the gas grid. So if you're going to decarbonise your heating, you need to come off of gas. But a lot of our homes are really badly built, and they weren't built to retain heat. They were built in the era of plentiful coal and no concerns about climate change. So we have to try and improve that. The UK has some very old housing stock, and it wasn't built to modern standards. In fact, even some of the modern homes isn't really built to modern standards, but that's another presentation. So it takes quite a lot to heat a home, keep it warm and comfortable. If you want to transition to electricity, which is a much more expensive fuel, it will increase heating bills unless you can make that home more energy efficient. With some of the older homes, solid wall construction, they're actually really difficult to retrofit. You need to do external insulation or internal wall insulation. There are complications with both, not least the kind of planning and conservation aspects of doing external wall insulation. But they're the practical aspects that you get from retrofit. It's also been estimated that working sort of zero carbon or low carbon industries can contribute around 750,000 jobs to the UK economy. And within that it covers retrofit, renewables and electric vehicles. So there's definitely an incentive to invest in this as a way of keeping people employed, bringing economic benefits. And as this final point says, it's been estimated that the cost to retrofit all homes in the UK to an EPCC is around £249.5 billion, which is an awful lot of money, for sure. But it does show that there is an investment opportunity there with an outcome afterwards. So the next slide, please. So just a bit on the policy context in the UK. In 2008, the UK government instituted the Climate Change Act, and this was to decrease carbon levels to 80% below 1990 levels by 2050. These were changed in 2020 to a net zero target. So that's 100% reduction of carbon emissions based off 1990 levels. So that was a really ambitious approach to take, and that's really great. But in between those two dates, 2008 and 1990, the UK government in 2015 decided that they didn't really want to invest in a lot of those policies, the green policies, and they actually cut a load of legislation policies to support energy efficiency improvements. So from 2015 until 2020, there was no policy around energy efficiency improvements for domestic properties in the UK. Thankfully, things have changed under the last Conservative Party manifesto. They pledged to support social housing with decarbonisation fund of 3.8 billion, and the low income sector of the owner occupiers by a 2.5 billion pound programme called the Home Upgrade Grant. So both of these programs are targeted on the worst performing homes, those homes with an EPC rating of D and below. And the idea is to bring those homes up to an EPCC. So essentially, the programs are designed to support those who most need the support and probably are least able to provide it. So just a little bit of additional, I think they're encouraging greater energy efficiency, look at keeping to those net zero commitments and support economic growth, improve the energy efficiency of the UK homes to meet the 15% reduction ambition, and to seize the economic benefits of net zero to drive jobs and growth through investment in these areas. So those are the fundamental policy requirements translated into the technical assistance facility. So the next page, please, Martin. So in terms of who would benefit from this, there are around 13 million homes in the UK, in England, sorry, not the UK, in England, that are rated EPC D and below. So there's an awful lot of homes that need to be improved up to at least an EPC C, perhaps even more. And of those, at least 1.4 million are socially rented. And of those, 54% were in fuel poverty. So these numbers are just the social housing element. There will be more homes that are supported through the home upgrade scheme that are owner occupied, but also low-income families really finding it difficult to heat their homes as well as eat and do some other things. So the Social Housing Decarbonisation Fund and Home Upgrade Fund were basically set up to support these people. And the quote on the right-hand side, sets it in really stark terms, really. You've got 6.3 million households in fuel poverty who are unable to heat their homes to a temperature to keep warm, and estimated there were 4.5 million UK households in fuel poverty. They're really big numbers, and it's not a position to be proud of as a country. Next slide, please. So in terms of what are our objectives for delivering the technical assistance facility, so we need to build capacity within the registered housing provider and local authority sectors. So that's capacity to deliver, so project managers, but also the understanding, the capability. So what does retrofit mean? How can you deliver it? We need to deliver value for money. So the government is always interested that any government funded program delivers value for money criteria. So we need to help people understand what is the best approach to retrofit their housing stock. You could probably take some houses to a very high standard of EPC, but it will cost a lot of money to get there. And so sometimes you need to find that middle ground of what is a good solution that gets us at least to energy performance certificate C without spending £100,000 on each home. Our role is to drive good quality applications to their funding process, and that would lead to a reduction in their statutory fuel poverty target. And we're looking to drive homes off of mains gas in the long term and put them onto low carbon heating, things like air source and ground source heat pumps. There are some other objectives. The previous government here had an objective around levelling up across the country, geographical levelling up. So actually, some of the worst performing properties are not, there's not an even distribution of badly performing properties across the UK. So some of the properties in the northeast and the northwest and in the southwest of England are particularly badly performing. We needed to drive sector levelling up. So there are local authorities and housing providers that are very good at retrofit. They've been doing it for a long while. And then there are others where it's not been a statutory requirement. It's not been a key element of their program. So they don't really have an understanding. And we want to increase the understanding across all of those different organisations. We also want to help our applicants help support their tenants. Ultimately, we can sit here and look at figures and spreadsheets and EPC ratings and terraced houses and different archetypes and what would be the best measure for this and what would be the best measure for that. But we have to do this work on people's homes while they're living there. So we have to get buy-in from tenants, because it's quite often intrusive and it's certainly messy and disruptive. So we want to support people to understand how they can engage with their tenants to get their buy-in. And one of the other things is just to develop a better understanding of the supply chain in the UK. Next slide, please. So this is the general journey that we would take our clients on. So our clients are the housing providers and local authorities. So we do some pre-engagement, and here we'd have a look at our market segmentation. We do a bit of stakeholder analysis, understand who's out there, what sort of engagement they've had in the programme before, have they delivered under other funding programmes, so that we just really get a good understanding of their level of competence with delivering retrofit, their understanding of the sector. We then start moving on to the acquisition stage. So in this stage, we'd be going out and speaking at conferences, talking to people, telling people about what we're doing, demonstrating how we can help people. Where possible, we might start looking at bringing organisations together to form a consortium so that they can scale up, maybe work with each other to procure contractors, maybe work with a more experienced delivery partner, so that they can learn off of those if you're less experienced. But generally, that's sort of the starting phase. The funding program normally is announced a period of time, and we'd start getting people contacting us, and then we would do a diagnostic call with them to understand their maturity levels in more detail, to see whether they have buy-in from their directors and their board, because if you haven't got buy-in, it's very difficult to progress these types of projects. So you definitely need people on side. And then we'd start evaluating their proposed documents, the properties that they're targeting, how they're going to do their resident engagement, the quality of their data, and provide them with specific one-to-one support that supported them. So that could be looking at their data in more detail, identifying archetypes for them, suggesting how they could get a data mapping tool, and there's several online systems that help with this, and really just helping them form what would be a good project, advising them areas that they need to work on, and then helping them bring that all together. And we provide all sorts of support. So we do online masterclasses. We've got loads of masterclasses on our website that can be watched on demand. We'd bring people together in consortiums and in round tables. I've already mentioned some of the one-to-one support. We gave a critical friend review at the end of the bidding period before they submit their bids, just to give them feedback on their initial drafts. And then, as I said, we've got consortium support, and we've got online toolkits and guidance. So we give them a whole range of opportunities to learn from our experience and our knowledge of the sector. So next slide, please. So we've talked about some of these, the services we offer, but I'll go through these a little bit more. We offer one-to-one consultant support. So this is really having a conversation, trying to determine what that person, that organisation looks like. Are they getting the support? Do they have other departments buy-in? Are there anything specifically that they need, and how can we help them with that? So that might result in round tables, workshops, suggestions of looking at our webinars and on-demand classes. We've also run a number of senior engagement events. Quite often these are round tables or dinner tables, dinner events, where we're getting the CEOs or the directors in, and they get an opportunity to meet some of the more senior people at the Department of Energy Security and Net Zero. And really it helps drive the ambition of the projects, but also where we have organisations that really should be in there and delivering, and for whatever reason they're not, we try to bring them to the table so that they can understand the importance of it for their business and the wider sector. We have a lot of information on our website. we do newsletters, we also do podcasts. So we try and do a very wide range of support services to help people in this program. Next slide. So this is just to run through the successes over the last few years. So nearly 98% of bidders that were supported by our social housing retrofit accelerator, so that's to support the social housing side of things, the SHDF, were successful in their bids, which is a really high proportion. And I think there was only 2 or 3 bids that were successful that didn't use our support services. So we really helped a lot of people through. We've got there was more than that. It was 131 out of the 144 SHDF bids received our support, but actually I think only 3 received funding. So a number obviously did apply for the funding without our support, but also weren't successful. We supported 308 organisations, and we supported 131 successful bids to the programme. And we've supported £1.3 billion worth of funding, which will generate £2.5 billion of work. So the funding has to be matched for social housing providers. They have to match it at least 50%. So that's why that figure is much higher. And the programme aims to complete 125,000 homes under this particular wave of works, which is the 2.1. So there's several waves of funding. And we've supported applications that range from just over £500,000 all the way up to £138 million. I mean, those large figures are normally for consortiums, and I think that consortium has 24 members. So you can see that it's a really high amount, but just to give you the scale of the support, the volume of work that's coming through. And then in the other program that we ran, the home upgrade program, 98% of all of the rural local authorities that were eligible to apply in England got support from us to support them with that. And the average award for applicants was £15 million, and without it was 11 million. So I think it sort of demonstrates that the support we give our organisations enables them to consider a bigger project, because we're able to help them identify how they can deliver that bigger project without it being more stressful or more difficult for them. Next slide, please. So this is my final thoughts. Why do we do projects? I mean, normally the reason we do a project is because we need to transform something in some description, and sometimes that transformation is quite small, and sometimes it's really quite big, but there's always a transformation. So if you're building a bridge, it's so you can get from one side to another side of a chasm or a river or whatever you're building a bridge over. So that transforms something. Within the context of this, we are trying to transform the market for retrofit in the UK so that we can upscale retrofit and meet those climate change demands much more quickly than we would if this facility didn't exist. There are some issues attached to that, in that we don't have a technical facility at the moment to support the supply chain upskill and get ready, and that at the moment is beginning to be the block for delivering this at scale. The other transformation that we get here is that of those 4.3 million households that are considered to be in fuel poverty, or the 6 point whatever many it was that can't afford to heat their home to a reasonable temperature, hopefully we start bringing those numbers down. So that is a real transformation to those people's lives, that they may have spare money in their bank account, or they might have a home that's just warmer, but they're not spending proportionally any more money on it. There are knock-on effects to living in cold homes. So worse health outcomes, particularly if you have respiratory or cardiovascular issues. If you have children, they're less likely to do well at school. So you have intergenerational issues that follow on from their opportunities. So actually, if we can change that, we may change the impact on people's health outcomes and on their school attainment. And in the UK, as you know, we have a national health system, so we pay money into that through our monthly salary, and that supports a free at the point of use health system. So where we can help improve people's health outcomes through not living in dangerous cold homes, that may well have an impact also on the cost of health, preventative health issues. So there'll be a longer term impact to the NHS to maybe concentrate on things that, you know, are more difficult to treat, that can't be treated at source. So just one final thing is that, you know, not all projects lead to a better world. I mean, they might lead to a better business model. They might lead to better shareholder outcomes. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's better for humanity and the planet. So, you know, if you can work on a project that's driving change to support a better world, fantastic. Not everybody can. But I think there are opportunities for project management and project managers to think about how they can drive that within the work that they do. Procurement is a real key one, thinking about EDI, equality, diversity and inclusion issues, and sort of driving all of this through the work that we do is one really important way of making change happen. So that's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much. I don't know what we do next, whether it's open for questions.
I go back on stage. I see I see a few questions. One would be, first, I would like to thank you for the presentation, and I'm really astonished about the scale of everything. What did you say, 249 billion pounds?
Yes, something like that. I'm not sure if that was before the current inflationary costs either, so maybe we'll look them up.
Yeah. Enrico has a question. How does the government, national or local, offer incentives to residents and other people to retrofit properties in line with sustainability?
Well, these two programs that we're supporting are two of the ways that they can do that. So through the Social Housing Decarbonisation Fund for social housing providers, they can get up to 50% of the cost of the works through a grant. So that makes it more attainable for social housing providers to do that work or do more of that work in the same period. The Home Upgrade Grant is a similar kind of program. It's actually aimed at people living in homes that are an EPC D or below, that are on a low income. So that would be classified as a household income of £31,000 or less. They then don't pay anything towards the works to get that home to an EPCC. But that is only for low income households. And if you happen to be in a household that earns £31,500, you will not qualify for that grant. So there is now a big chunk of the sector that we would call the able to pay sector. So you don't qualify for the low income grants. So you therefore are able to pay. I think many people in the UK would say they're not able to pay. I hope you're not getting background noise here.
No. Everybody who is not speaking, please mute your phone. Okay. Then William asks a question. I'm also a part-time landlord and my properties have electric storage heating. The UK government requires property to be EPC level C. Properties with electric store are EPC D. But if I convert my properties to gas central heating, does it make sense to switch to gas?
I think the incentive there is to look at all the possible options. Sorry, there's terrible drilling going on upstairs. I do apologise if you could hear that. The incentive here is to try and get you to insulate your rental properties before you change the heating source. So no, the policy is not to drive you to put gas heating into those properties or oil heating. The policy is there to say, have you done everything to make that home as thermally efficient as you can? So loft insulation, maybe wall insulation, possibly floor insulation. Have you upgraded your windows and doors? Have you done air tightness testing? Are they airtight? Have you done everything you can to improve them? And then can we have a look at maybe installing low carbon heating? So electricity is becoming a low carbon heat source because of the decarbonisation of the energy grid. But it's an expensive way of heating a home. Certainly old storage heaters are not great. Newer storage heaters are much better. But things like air source heat pumps or ground source heat pumps may give you a better return on the longer term, more money upfront for them.
So just from my understanding, the program you are dealing with is insulating the home, not changing the heating system.
Well, no, we can change the heating system as well, but it is a fabric first based approach. So the fundamental approach of a fabric first based is that if you want to transition off of carbon based fuels and not load the cost onto the individual by moving them onto electrical heating, which is more expensive, you have to reduce the energy demand in that property first. And the only way to reduce energy demand in many instances is to insulate it and improve the thermal elements first.
Okay. So that's just step 1 and step 2.
And then you go to low carbon heating, and then you put on solar PV and you have battery storage.
Okay. Do we have any more questions from the audience?
Yeah.
We have the Q&A is open, so just please use it.
There's one here from Gunnar, I think. What should take precedence in prioritizing funding, e.g. highest consuming properties, lowest EPC rating, highest potential return in carbon reduction terms per pound invested in retrofit, lowest household income or affordability of energy use, etc. And is there a good data to drive this prioritization and measure ongoing impact? That's a really good question, Gunnar, and it's probably not as straightforward as I'd like it to be, my answer. It really has to be looked at the portfolio level. So you look at your housing portfolio, you kind of remove everything from that is already in EPCC, because we're not going to focus on it. And then we have a look through what we're left with. And there are a number of analytics companies in the UK that have this EPC data, and that you can have a look at it visually, and they'll also provide you with some opportunities to see what different measures you can put on and what that will do to your CO2 savings. The guidance that we would always give is that EPCC as a target is an arbitrary target. And relying on that as your final finishing target alone is going to potentially put you in a difficult position if you suddenly jump to, say, we'll put a low carbon heating system in and solar PV to achieve an EPCC. One, because we think that the targets will change to net zero at some stage, so an EPCA. And two, because you may by doing that, you're missing out on certain other things that you could do, but you could be doing things that need to be undone at some stage. The other aspect of that, as I would say, is that to retrofit some properties to an EPCC is going to be so expensive. There's a question as to whether the organisation wants to do that. So in some instances, they might decide that where they've got older houses, so that are generally termed pre-1920, which is when cavity walls came into construction in the UK. they might decide to offload those properties and replace them with newer properties that have a better rating because they're just very expensive to build. You then have other properties in conservation areas, listed buildings, but planning is required to do those improvements, and that's a slow process and it can take longer. So that's not to say that they never get done, but you have to look at the program that you're working with, the timescales, and what's achievable within those timescales. So you may target some some better performing properties, so a D or possibly an E, even though you might have like several hundred G rated properties, because the other ones are easier to retrofit. You don't require planning. It's a simpler approach. You can achieve that. There's an estate with 300 on them, so you haven't got them pepper potted around in your locality. All of these things come into play as to how you decide to do that. And then if you're a local authority, you'll have that kind of local politics, which will also impact how you approach this as well. So there's no one straight answer, but I hope that comes some way to explaining how you might do it. Okay, we've got a similar program here in Nova Scotia. I like your focus on insulation first, as many people want to heat pump without building. Yes, there's people like shiny things. I want to add something shiny to my house and show people that I'm really virtuous, and I do green virtue signaling, I think it's called, or something along those lines. And also, like, doing insulation is disruptive, and once you've done it, you can't see it. So, you know, if you put insulation on a wall and you plaster the wall and paint it, and like nobody knows you've just spent a load of money doing that on your house. So when you have your friends come around and go, "Why? Well, you've had building works for 6 months. What have you done? I can't see anything." So you don't get that kind of nice feedback, like, "Oh, I spent a lot of money on a nice kitchen. You've got a very nice kitchen. Oh, I love a kitchen like this." So those are big problems to get over. But fundamentally, you know, if you want to reduce bills, you have to deal with the thermal envelope first, because you're not gonna change anything with a bit of solar PV and a heating. If I go back to the original kind of comment around 90% of the UK homes are heated with gas. You know, if we just change that to electric heating and solar PV, well, lots of homes wouldn't be able to have solar PV. Most of the solar PV won't deliver enough energy to heat your heating system all year round. And something like, for most UK homes, the space heating demand is about 2/3 of the total energy consumption of that property. So 65-ish% is space heating demand. So, you know, if you want to reduce carbon, you have to come off of carbon-based fuels. And if you want people not to be paying a lot of money, they need to have their homes insulated. I mean, I'm a big proponent of the insulation. I don't work for an insulation company, honestly.
Okay. Are there any more questions? Just one, last one, since the lunch break is coming up. So again, Kate, thank you very much. It was impressive, and okay, you see the announcement. We have now 1 hour lunch break, and then we will have a winner, hopefully, for our top networker. You see the networking facility in Hop-In if you click on the button to the left, and just connect to other people. We are not here that everybody is sitting alone. We want them to network and to work together. That's project management, not doing things alone, but doing things together. Thank you very much, and
Thanks for having me.
See you in the next presentations. Goodbye.
Bye.